Graham Watson, Liberal Democrat MEP for the South West. We've heard in the Petitions Committee here in the European Parliament this morning from Michael Rolfe, one of your constituents. What do you make of his case, and is there anything that the EU can do about it?
Well, I think the case is one which is frankly quite disgraceful in the sense that he and a number of other people invested in properties in Cyprus. They were discovered to be built not according to planning permission and with substandard building techniques. The properties are now falling down. They're unsafe to live in, they're unsellable, and Mr. Rolfe and his colleagues naturally want to see justice in this case. They want either compensation or for the properties to be rebuilt properly.
Is there any chance for them to get that? And if they can't get it from Cyprus, is there any power here at a European level to deal with that kind of thing?
Well, Mr. Rolfe and his colleagues fear that they would not get justice through the Cyprus legal system. It's a small community, the property developers know people in the Justice Ministry and so on. They did have an undertaking from the Ministry of the Interior to sort the problem out, undertaking which sadly has not been fulfilled. And so they brought their case here to the European Parliament. We have no formal powers under the European Union treaties to involve ourselves in property matters. This is a matter for member states, but we do have the right to hear the cases, to try to bring political pressure to bear on the government of Cyprus to right this injustice, and I hope that that is what we will have achieved from today.
And that was really my next question. Do you think that's the value then in this particular case of raising this issue in the European Parliament? And you mentioned political pressure. Is there any political pressure that you can now bear down on the Cypriot authorities?
There certainly is. As a result of this hearing, I will write to the Commissioner responsible for consumer protection and to the Commissioner responsible for the single market. And I will remind them of the fact that the European Union gives us the freedom to purchase properties, to reside elsewhere in the Union, but that freedom is not much use unless you have access to justice if things go wrong. And they can help provide that access to justice by putting pressure on the government of Cyprus to make sure that these constituents are properly compensated.
Just finally, your constituent is meanwhile in a kind of limbo and a very difficult situation to be living with on a day in, day out basis. Do you see any chance of this being resolved ultimately?
Oh, I certainly think there's a chance of it being resolved, and I hope it will be. And the majority of cases that come up to the Petitions Committee do end up being resolved, and resolved in the petitioner's favour. But of course, this is sadly an occurrence that happens far too frequently. People who buy properties in the sun in Spain or Cyprus or elsewhere, who find themselves at the mercy of unscrupulous property developers, often without the proper planning permissions, and find themselves with essentially little access to justice.
Given what you're saying about this case, would you advise your constituents against making these kind of investments in places like Cyprus in future?
Well, of course, the old maxim, buyer beware, is one that should apply everywhere. But people in good faith invest in things like this and sometimes discover that what they've invested in, the contract, is not worth the paper on which it's written. And my job, as one of their elected representatives, is to try to sort this out and try to get them proper compensation or a property that is properly built.